And I don't have my big setup, but I'm still excited about it. Okay. Um, yeah, we're a little late. I've been fiddling with my presentation, if you will, trying to. Uh, I've got some ideas, and I wanted to express them clearly in this online format. Um, anyway, um, I've really got to get a better camera set up for this. All right, so welcome to Redeemer. As I mentioned, right when I clicked go, um, I'm working from home a lot of this week, mostly because I have a sick kiddo in the next room. She's fine. She just got some sniffles. We can't take her to school until she's better, so here we are. But I'm still, responding to emails, writing sermons, um, checking in on people, things like that. I'm still taking meetings. And so if you need to go meet at the church or you need to get into the church to do something, please let me know. I can pop over there. We can do that. Um, but anyway, I've got my dog right here. Um, oh, she's right here. Here you go, good dog. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about this book I'm reading. It's called Show Your Work. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. Actually, I'm going to. Here we go. It's me. Um, go ahead and. Hey, all right. So, there's this book called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. He's an American. I think he's based out of California. Um, but just a little bit of background about why I'm even talking about this in a church reflection. Um, as you may remember from previous conversations, I'm really into productivity. I'm into productivity as far as how we can uh, automate our time, like basically let all the tools like our computers and our phones and all those things like do the little things for us. Whether it's you know when you when you download your credit card statement, it automatically the computer puts it in a file on your computer that says credit card statements 2020 or what have you, and it may rename the file February statement 2021, and puts it in a folder in your computer. Or if you're a more paper person, um, you can at least scan that and have a digital copy of it for your records, and it will automatically look at the date, for example. There are lots of little tricks that modern technology can do to help you automate your time. Um, or if you keep a digital calendar, there are lots of ways to integrate that with a to-do list. If you keep a to-do list, things like that. And even if you're not a digital person, like if you keep a paper list of things, there are methods of being more practical in your analog system as well. The reason I'm obsessed with automating things is I don't come by it naturally. Um, Somebody was asking me one time about scheduling a meeting with me, and if you've ever if you've been around, um, you'll you'll know that if you've tried to schedule a meeting with me, typically what happens is I send you a little link that you click on and you um, find a time to make a meeting. And that's not to imply that, hey, I'm so busy, I need you to do this for me. You need to find your own time. But like the back and forth of, when can you meet? What does your week look like? I don't know. I'm pretty free. What does your week look like? Well, let me look at it. How does Wednesday sound? Wednesdays are pretty busy. How about Thursday at 10? How about Tuesday at 9? Like all those things, just that I just want all that to go away, um, and just focus on the things that I want to focus on. So, like for example, me sending a link that shows you my calendar and shows you spots, where you can plug in, is great for me, because it just gets a lot of that conversation out of the way and lets you choose your favorite time, so you don't feel like you're trying to be. I would rather help people find the time that's best for them, and then as opposed to them trying to imagine, well, what would be Andrew's most convenient time. I'm going to imagine when he wants to sign up for a meeting. I'd rather you just pick your own time and let's go with it. All right. That said, the reason I'm into automation is it doesn't come to me naturally. I'm very ADD. Have been since first grade. And so I have to basically organizational skills, and keeping to tight schedules and calendars, again, like isn't my natural state of being. I have to put a lot of work into it. And so like I learned little tricks growing up. So like instead of, taking Adderall and other medications as I did when I was a child, I developed skills for myself, like, keeping notepads with me where I can always jot down notes, because I know that I'm not going to keep that fact or that time or that number in my head very long. It's going to fade away quickly. My wife can attest that if you send me to the grocery store with 3 things, if I don't write them down, I will forget at least one of them by the time I get there, and will probably have to call and ask what was that third thing I was supposed to get from the grocery store. Happens without fail. So the fact that I can write things down with my pen and paper at the drop of a hat, or even better yet, dictate it to my phone, is just the best. And so as I was watching lots of YouTubers and reading lots of articles of people who do online content, because I'm kind of ADD, I don't read well. I listen great. So most of my book consumption is audiobook, and reading long form like printed pages for me is difficult. And so I turn to people like Ali Abdul, who's a doctor in Cambridge, England, who I think just moved to the U.S. But he's a doctor, but also he became so productive as far as his time management and other skills that he had to learn through medical school, that he started kind of showing people how to time manage, and that became so popular that he actually took a hiatus from practicing medicine and sort of is doing this full time, sort of as a test, just to see. Anyway, it's through his I value his opinion because I've really enjoyed what he's had to say, and he was the one that turned me on to this book, Show Your Work. Now, I haven't finished it, and I don't. So this is not a book report per se, but it did make me think about what Austin Kleon's message that I've read so far, how that would apply to the Christian life. So before I get on to that, we have to talk a little bit about what Kleon is saying. I'm going to pop in a window to see if I can. Oh, I should mention that there's a link to this book to show your work in the description. So if you would like, you may certainly find a copy for yourself. I'm also going to put, let's see, I'm going to put the link in the comments section right now. To oops. I'll try that again. Here we go. Oh, for some reason it's not letting me do it. Let's try this. No, I don't want that. I want... Huh. Where is the link? Let me try one more time. There we go. Sorry, everybody. Don't mean to bore everyone. I'm just grabbing this link real quick. There we go. Get link. There it is. Okay. I'm going to put this in the comment section. So if you wanted to buy the book, you could do it. It's really short, so you could easily get through this quickly. Anyway, so I'm going to add a window capture. Okay. There we go. Hide that. You don't need to see that. All right. And so there we go. All right, so okay, so like I said, COVID has made us become more online. And so we're trying to learn to do things in a way that we've not really been tasked to do before. And yeah, that's understandable. I think there was a lot of conversation behind, clergy learning how to do things online, parishioners navigating what it looks like to attend church digitally. But that move was something that I have been interested in for some time, well before the pandemic. I guess I was kind of lucky because I started a podcast 2 years ago in the hopes of doing a conversation around faith. And part of sort of my resolution for this year was to be more consistent with the podcast, and so I was learning from people who put out content regularly, how they do it and how they balance, putting out content on YouTube or something like that with their actual regular job. And that's where Ali Abdul, who again is this doctor who has become a YouTuber essentially, that's why I appreciate his work, is that he started the YouTube really as just sort of like a side hobby, just feeling the need to write and start a blog, and then that transitioned into doing videos online, and that took off so much so that it kind of eclipsed his practice of medicine and his time as a med student, and then later as a doctor. And so I took his recommendation to heart, wanting to know how I could do stuff digitally, as a podcaster, but also as a priest. And obviously the podcast, because of its nature and its theme, it is a direct kind of companion to the work I'm already doing at the church. But I really tied into what the author is saying, and that is basically a call to, when you want to do something online, to show your work. Basically, be an amateur. As here, I'll put this back up on the screen. Be an amateur. In fact, in French, amateur means a lover. So amateurs are not afraid to make mistakes, to look ridiculous in public. They are in love with what they do. So whether you are an amateur musician and you're, playing in a coffee house or at a talent show, you're not going to be the best. If you're at an open mic night, you're not going to be your best. You're going to be just doing it for the experience and also just for the joy of doing it. I played guitar at camp, not because I wanted to be famous or to hone my skills and start busking on the streets of Jackson or whatever, or Nashville or wherever I might be, but because I liked the music and I liked when people would sing with me. So whether you are trying to do something like YouTube or starting a blog, don't fret about your numbers, your subscriber count. And I think that's a trap that I can easily fall into myself. It's interesting since we started doing all this YouTube stuff, it's really easy for me to look at the view count for the various videos that I do. Case in point, these Wednesday videos get awful view numbers. I'll be lucky if 3 people watch this video. But at the same time, when I did a church announcement and I ate some potato chips, some really hot potato chips, that is easily the most viewed video on the Redeemer website. It's got, I think the last I saw, like 194 views. Easter got like 50, I think. But my point being is that to measure the success of the church online by view count is a good metric, but it's not the reason for doing this kind of content. I mean, whether I'm doing this online or not, part of my job is to be a communicator. And so learning how other people are doing regular communication well and putting it out there in a space that is getting traction from viewers, from readers, from the audience, the consumer audience, is important. I mean, it's basically it boils down to, how do you hone your message and become better at saying things in a way that reaches people? Because you can be a really good priest, for example, and be awful at talking to people, and so you're really not going to be doing that good of a job. Maybe you could find a way to minister in a different way if that's your situation. Likewise, for anyone in a profession, how you communicate to people is really important, even if your job does not require public speaking or public communications as a whole. At some point, you're going to have to learn how, or you're going to have to be better at working with people. Let's say I had a wood shop and built lawn chairs for people and built like Adirondack chairs. If I was just a producer working with my hands and my timber and my lumber and my saws and things like that, I would still have to find a good lumber supplier. Build that relationship. If I how do I sell to either a local market or directly to the consumer? Let's say I was, I really enjoy barbecue. Let's say I was, doing a catering business. I'm still going to have to find my butcher and figure out how to get good prices. So there is communication, there is self-promotion, whether you're self-employed or whether you're working in a larger business structure. Even if you're just one part of many people coming together in a business situation, you're still going to have to self-promote yourself, because everyone who works is doing so because it makes their boss's job easier to give you money to do something for them. Anyway, that is really not what I was here to talk about, but I just kind of got off into a tangent. So I guess to kind of bring this back to what I was trying to say was that there's talk of finding a scenus. A scenus is sort of the author's way of bundling. You don't have to be a genius in what you do. The idea of a lone creative genius locking herself or locking himself in a room and coming out with a fully realized composition, like a brilliant, opus or a brilliant piece of literature or playwriting, it is a dangerous and misguided conception. Shakespeare may have been a literary genius, but it's not like Shakespeare went on to the top of the mountain and came back with his complete folio. Shakespeare wrote working with a company of people. The historical record for Shakespeare is a little dodgy, but we can assume that Shakespeare, for the sake of argument, let's just say that Shakespeare, was a working actor that came up through the ranks, that had writing partners that did workshop stuff, and so that the great folio of Shakespeare was a collaborative effort. To single out certain individuals throughout history that we say are geniuses is not to just diminish their work, but they had a life of experience that helped form them and put them into the place where they were, and to bounce ideas off of, or to be influences of. So genius is not created in a vacuum, solely in a cabin in the woods on a mountaintop. It is done in community. And I guess that's really my point that I'm trying to get at, is that our faith is best lived in community. The Cenobites, the religious orders that live in isolation, you have your communities, like a monastic communities, like a Benedictine community, may live set apart from larger society, may have a remote monastery somewhere. However, that is itself a working, gelled community that brings members in to the mechanism of the community, and members depart at the end of their life. But that it is a gelled community that also still works within the wider uh, community outside the walls of the monastery for farming and food and other things. I mean, those larger monasteries historically were basically self-sufficient little towns or estates, really, some of which owned massive amounts of land. Um, and so our faith is done in community, and we are better when we realize that there is a systemic web of people who come together to make these things happen. You know, when one person falls or is injured, or is harmed or hurt or neglected, it does affect the rest of the web. Whether that's emotional strain it puts on your day or your relationship with people, maybe it puts you in a grumpy mood because your significant other is having a bad day, or maybe they were stressed and snapped at you and it puts you in a mood. All of these things, whether it's good or bad, whether it's positive or negative, all these things are interconnected webs, is what I'm trying to say. And so to recognize that when we are trying our best, whether it's doing something amateurish, full of love and excitement, whether we are exploring how something fits into our life, or whether that's a call that we are having, that it's best done in a community of love, and that you are able to show people your failure along the way. So part of the reason I'm reading this book is to basically learn how to fail in front of everyone through online content like this, but also to realize that it is part of a communal process of growth. Our growth at Redeemer is going to be done publicly and with failure. And when I say our growth, it's not because we used to be here and are here or whatever. There is no real normal. There is just where we are. I mean, yes, obviously 2020 did set us back from where we were pre-COVID. However, that is not to say that we are not in our natural state of being. There is no right way. There's no one right way to do church. I mean, there are wrong ways to do church, but there's no one right way. And I think that by showing our example, by showing our work, as the author says, that we engage people, and they want to be a part of our conversation and our journey. One final thing I'll say, because I've gone on a long time, and my apologies for not staying as on topic as I thought. One thing I did realize when I was doing these weekly reflections is that hopefully we will do some more basically slice of life reflections. Where was it? Here we go. So, one quote that says a little harsh. This is talking about doing online content. Now, keep in mind, this book is written for people who kind of want to do more online content. I did forget to mention this. Good nonfiction is a chance for someone to watch someone reasonably bright, but also reasonably average, pay far close attention and think far more at length to all sorts of different stuff than most of us have to do in our daily life. I think that's a really good point. When I'm watching someone in my example, or for me, if I'm watching someone who is like really good at, say, barbecue outside, watching them, if they just show up and say, "Here's a brisket I cooked," that's excellent. But how did you get there? how did you do all of like the nitty gritty like detail stuff? One thing I don't like about, say, television is if you're doing a cooking show, yeah, they're going to show you how they do the recipe. But, um, if someone's showing you, like on Food Network, like, here's how I cook a brisket on a smoker, um, they're going to show you how to throw their seasoning on. And they're going to show you what it looked like before. And they're going to say, oh, we're going to park this in the smoker for, 13 hours. And then they're going to show you opening the lid and pulling out this beautiful brisket. They're not going to show you, like, how you got the fire to be steady. And that's what I love about, say, for example, YouTube, is that you can watch someone go into insane detail about how they do fire management in the firebox of their smoker. Now, that's something that I would watch all night long, because God knows there are 40 videos of people showing how they do it. And so you can consume 40 different versions of how people do fire management for their barbecue smokers. And then you can distill down to what you think is going to work for you. Then you can try it and you can adjust from there. Again, another reason I really like keeping a notepad handy. But what we can do is if we commit to what we want to learn and be afraid to do it in front of others, that is a daring and beautiful thing. And I will close with one line that I read from the book, and then because again, I've only just scratched the surface of this book. I haven't really read the whole thing. But the author says, he says, it may sound a little extreme, but if your work isn't online, it doesn't exist. And that seems a little harsh. Are doctors not working because their efforts are confined within the walls of hospitals and clinics? Of course not. Are mechanics or plumbers not doing anything when they fix or when they rebuild a broken system? No, of course not. They are clearly doing their work. However, it's really nice that there are some people who are taking the time to put their work online. So, for example, my old house in Jackson had to have the plumbing replaced underneath it. And by watching some YouTube videos, I taught myself over the course of a few days to basically replumb the entire underneath of my house. I have also used blogs and explanations online and articles and videos, and especially YouTube, to replace the headlamps in an old Jeep, to replace the stereo in my car, to do other minor engine fixes, because a mechanic took the time to show how to do it. And so if you want to learn how to replace the headlamp on a 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee, you can find a video that exactly details how to do that. I love the internet. But someone took the time to show that work, that mundane, silly work. And so if the mundane detail is actually important for people, and will be vitally important for someone at some point during the day, maybe months or years into the future, the fact that you have shown someone how to do it is of vital importance. I think that our community of faith, whether it's just here in Redeemer or beyond, will learn a lot from showing our work as members of the faithful. And that could be through writing our own trials and tribulations, our own testimonies, putting them online, or putting them into a book, or putting them into a journal. I think showing your work, whether it's for your own reflection later, or if it's for public consumption, because again, not everything has to be public, but show your work even if it's to yourself. That way you can come back and reflect upon it, and when you have a friend or companion or loved one or a stranger going through a similar situation, you can go back, check your own notes to yourself, and give them sage advice that comes from experience and wisdom. Again, also not knowing or not being afraid to still be that amateur. We never really have time in our lives to be fully, truly experts on anything, really. We just have experience, and by showing our failures, both either in an online situation if you're doing an instructional video, or just by showing your failures just in life and showing them with honest compassion and coming from a place of love, we're realizing that there is a dependency that we can't do things by ourselves. We need each other, but also we need God. I think that's a humble reminder that we are not as cool and groovy as we oftentimes think we are. Kind of helps keep our pride in check, and I appreciate that. Anyway, those are some thoughts. I know this whole thing went a little long, and my apologies for not getting to the good stuff sooner. But again, I'm still figuring out how to do these Wednesday reflections, and I thank you for joining me on this journey. More details about the book, I'll put that out. Don't forget, tonight we have our first Genesis Christian Ed hour tonight at 6 o'clock. I'll send an email reminding everyone. But thank you for stopping by. Let me know in the comments section what you thought of the video. And yeah, as always, God bless.